Full body tracking has come a long way over the past few years. We went from base stations and Vive trackers being the only choice to now having a plethora of good options. And today, we're taking a look at Sony's newest set of trackers. Just announced a couple days ago to finally be coming to the US, this is Mocopi. I've been using them for the past week or so, and they're probably the smallest and easiest to set up full body tracking I have ever used, while being compatible with PC VR and Quest standalone VRChat without using a PC at all. But are these actually any good at full body tracking? Well, we're gonna answer that and a lot more today. But first, if you do end up spending all day in VR dancing around in full body tracking, I know you're gonna be hungry, which is the perfect match for this video sponsor. Factor. Delivered fresh, never frozen, and made by chefs. You just heat it up in either the microwave or oven. It only takes a couple minutes and you got a tasty meal ready for you. And really, I sometimes just don't have the time to do all the grocery shopping, cooking, and then cleaning afterwards, and I don't want takeout all the time. So Factor is kind of a time treat for me. Hey, that's pretty good. And with an assortment of 35 different meals from creamy Parmesan chicken to pesto pork chops, they got a bit of everything whether you're keto, vegan, vegetarian, or as omnivore as it gets. And if you head to factor75.com or click the link down below and use code ThrillSeeker50, you'll get 50% off your first box. Again, that's factor75.com. Use ThrillSeeker50 to get 50% off your first box. And of course, thank you Factor for supporting the channel, but let's get back to the video. Okay, so let me just very quickly give a roundup of what the entire full body tracking scene looks like right now, because it's always changing and evolving and it happens fast. So, of course, the best full body tracking available right now is just good old base stations and Vive or Tundra trackers. The only problem is that if you don't have base stations, it's pretty expensive, plus you'll need a PC for that at all times. And just based off of price and performance, it's kind of in a different league compared to Mocopi. On the other side, there are a few far cheaper, almost free solutions like an Xbox Kinect or webcam that you can use for full body, but those are also in their own different league in terms of tracking quality from the third option, which is IMU trackers. No base stations needed at all, and they're significantly cheaper, of course, at the detriment of some tracking quality. And within this range of trackers, your options are pretty much Hardware X and wireless, Slime VR, and of course, the newest to this scene, Mocopi. So first off, in the box, you get the carrying case, and inside are the 6 trackers. Each one of them is labeled for their correct position to put on your body. You also get 5 straps and a clip, 2 for each ankle, 2 for each wrist, 1 for your head, and then the clip for your waist. And to charge Mocopi, you just put all the trackers in the case and plug it in. It's pretty nice actually. Plus the case, each tracker, and each strap is magnetic, so it all pops into place with little retention clips holding the tracker into the strap. These definitely aren't going to go flying around. Now regarding the build quality of Mocopi, well, I've used just about every full body tracking setup out there, and Mocopi just feels really premium. Like, you can tell this is a production level Sony product. It has the same fit and finish you'd expect from something like a PS5 controller, which is something I'm just not really used to seeing with VR accessories, especially for full body tracking stuff. And that's kind of a running theme here. This is a very polished product, at least physically. The setup and phone application, which work on both iOS and Android, are super simple and clean. You just download the app, turn on the trackers, and it'll connect to each one individually while giving you a walkthrough of where to position the trackers on your body. After that, it's a quick calibration and you're good. If you ever need to recalibrate, you just press the recalibrate button on your phone and you stand still for a couple seconds, and that's pretty much the whole setup. And see, this is where Mocopi is just a little different from any of the other full body tracking solutions out there. This isn't just meant for VRChat and VR. And in the app, you can do all sorts of things. It's really a mini motion capture setup, and the tracking is actually pretty good. I mean, it's not perfect, and you can definitely see there's a bit of delay between my movements and the model moving, but I still find this pretty darn cool. Plus, you can use this anywhere and bring in any VRM model. It's just a cool thing to have. On top of that, it's got super easy Unreal Engine and Unity support for anything you need motion capture for, animations, performances, VTubing, and it's kind of crazy to have a motion capture rig that fits in your back pocket. But as cool as that all is, it's time to talk about the VR performance, because because while this may look really good, the outcome is not the same on the VR side. I will say though, the setup to get full body tracking working in VRChat is super easy. In the app, there's a PC connection settings. You just select the VRChat OSC option, enter the IP address of either your Quest or PC, depending on whether you're using Quest or PC VR. Press the broadcast button, hop into VRChat, turn on OSC, and voila, you got full body tracking. And it may sound like a lot of steps, but it's really simple and it takes like 2 minutes. And the tracking quality is, acceptable, maybe? All right, you know what? I'm gonna be totally real. The phone app motion capture part of Mocopi is freaking awesome. It works really good, at least for what it is. Then the Unreal Engine and Unity setup also look pretty cool too. I'm probably gonna use both of those features at some point. However, I'm sorry, Sony, but the VRChat and VR performance in general is just kinda bad, and that's not something I really say very often. But out of the box, it's definitely the worst looking IMU based tracking setup that you can buy right now, at least for VRChat, with the caveats being that it's incredibly easy to set up, and I will say that there is something we can do to fix almost all of these problems, and Mocopi can be good, and we'll get to that in a second. But I need to show you just how mid the tracking really is out of the box.
Is mid good or bad?
Mid is bad.
Here I'm showing footage comparing Vive trackers, Haratora X, Slime, and Mocopi, also taking it from other people's showcases as well, so you can see general usage, not just my own. And yeah, it drifts pretty bad, it's choppy, and you're decently limited in the amount of movements that it'll actually pick up. Like sitting down works okay, moving your legs slowly or walking looks fine too. Laying down sometimes works, but everything has a noticeable delay. Your hip and back kind of crunch up all the time, especially with normal humanoid avatars, meaning you're gonna have to lock certain things, which can cause other problems. And at least in my experience, fast-paced dancing is just off the table unless you're on a fresh calibration. And if you are doing a lot of dancing, you'll probably be recalibrating a lot. And all of this kind of sucks because I think myself and a lot of people were really excited about Mocopi. Seeing Sony make a full body tracking setup is just awesome. Plus it's tiny and portable, it's got a 10-hour battery life. But if you're getting this specifically for VRChat, as I know a lot of people watching this video are probably looking to do, at the $450 price tag, Haratora X or just making slimes is not only cheaper, but provides significantly better tracking. But hold up, that's not the whole story, because there is a way to make these significantly better. I found out there's a way to just turn Mocopi trackers into slime trackers, increasing the tracking fidelity significantly for VR usage. Now, this doesn't affect the phone app side of it, but for VRChat usage, it's huge. And here's where things get really interesting. If you look at Mocopi and its tracking performance in VRChat, it makes total sense why it looks bad. And it's not necessarily because the product is bad. It is capable of good tracking. I mean, this setup looks great on the phone app in Unreal Engine, but that's because Mocopi really is a very simple 6-point motion capture setup. But that translation to be used in VR is kind of weird. And there's a reason why every other IMU tracking setup in this category, like Haratora and Slime, essentially use 9 points of tracking data or more. Those points being 1, your headset, then your 2 controllers, and then an array of 5 to 6 IMUs, usually positioned on the chest, hip, both knees, and then both ankles. And since the Mocopi app just doesn't receive any data about the position or rotation of your headset and controllers, while using it in VR, you have to keep the wrist and head trackers on your wrist and head, which means that those 3 tracking points are redundant. You already have controllers and a headset. You don't need that to be tracked twice. And the result is that you pretty much have more or less only the accuracy of wearing 3 IMUs on your lower body. And for VRChat, at least in the state that Mocopi is in right now, it just doesn't look very good. On top of that, there just is a lot of latency and drift, something that may be more acceptable if the tracking quality itself was good, but it's also not that great. But now we can talk about something called MoSlime. Turns out you can totally turn a set of Mocopi trackers into slime trackers, which instantly makes the tracking fidelity of Mocopi, at least within VRChat, go from okay to almost as good, if not as good as any other IMU solution, turning your redundant 3-point tracking into a full 6-point 6-point IMU array in addition to your headset and controllers. This essentially fixes Mocopi's VRChat problem. And now this isn't a tutorial, so don't worry about the details too much, but if you're considering Mocopi at all, this is kind of an important thing to take advantage of, because this one thing kind of totally changes the value of Mocopi trackers. So MoSlime is a brand new third-party software that sends tracker data from the Mocopi trackers to the Slime server. Unfortunately for now, MoSlime only works on Linux, which almost stopped me right there. And if that's about to get you too, just hold on for a second. The intention is to use a Raspberry Pi, and maybe in the future this will be a phone app, but for now you'll just need anything that runs Linux, even just a virtual machine on your desktop of Linux. And for me, I just use my Steam Deck. And to be honest, I have never done anything in Linux besides maybe the most basic of tasks. And doing this required me to be in console installing all sorts of Python modules, but I was able to do it fine. Believe me, if I can do it, anybody can. And after that base setup, it's really just a matter of connecting all your Mocopi through Bluetooth and then starting the Slime server on your PC. After that, Mocopi just acts like a set of Slime trackers. The only thing left to do is to move the head strap off your head to your chest. Now, the wrist straps that come with Mocopi will not fit any thighs of a living person, but luckily you can just unscrew the wrist strap clip and strap it onto a larger strap or just add a Velcro extension. And after that's done, you just calibrate like you normally would with Slime and you're good to go in VRChat. And the crazy part here is that if you want even better tracking quality, you can add more Slime trackers. And so I will say that this solution isn't perfect. It's very alpha and there's a few caveats, at least for now. Like if a tracker disconnects, you have to completely restart MoSlime and the server. So that's a pain, but it did work, which is the important part. And the tracking quality is easily twice as good as it was before, which is the biggest complaint of all of Mocopi. And so, after everything said here, would I really recommend Mocopi? I mean, it's $450 and that is not cheap. And well, Mocopi does have a couple really big things going for it. It is by far the easiest full body tracking setup I have ever used. You open the app, connect all the trackers, enter your IP, that is it. And then you could just throw it in your pocket and have a cheap mobile motion capture setup that works with kind of everything. It's not the best at what it does, but these things usually cost thousands, not hundreds. And in my opinion, this device is totally democratizing really cheap mocap for consumers. And on top of that, Mocopi is probably going to get decent support because the largest VTuber company in the world has directly partnered with it. So there's that. But regarding the VR side of Mocopi, I have to admit, hopping into standalone VRChat on the Quest Pro with Mocopi's full body tracking with built-in hand tracking and eye tracking, all without any PC or base station in sight, is kind of awesome. Like, I could do that in a coffee shop if I want, and you got to admit, that's pretty freaking cool. But that's also why it's such a shame that the tracking quality, at least out of the box, is just not very good. There's a lot to be desired, especially for the price. Hardware X is $150 cheaper, and Slime is even cheaper than that, and they both perform noticeably better. So, my final consensus. I think Sony made something pretty cool here and they're on the right track. But if you're looking for an IMU based tracking setup and you know you spend 99% of your time in PC VR and you don't care about any of the other Mocapi features, there are just flat out better and cheaper options for you. Hardware X or Slime VR will probably better suit your needs. And if you're that person, even if you do turn your Mocopis into Slime trackers for better tracking quality, well, at that point, you're just spending double on the form factor and a nice charging case. You might as well go with Slime at that point. But if you see yourself using it as a fun mocap toy that's also capable of super easy PC and Quest full body tracking, that also has Slime VR capability, well, if you're that kind of person, then Mocopi doesn't sound like a bad deal at all. Really, once you add the Slime capability, this is a pretty cool little setup. Once you slog through the pain, it does have good tracking quality. It's easy to set up for whenever you don't want to do that, and it's got some other fun stuff you can mess with. But I should also warn you that if you do end up getting Mocopi to turn them into slimes, you're going to have to deal with very alpha style issues. Don't expect it to be a perfect solution right away. It is capable of it. I did it, but it's early and it's a third-party solution, so who knows what's gonna happen. What I would really want for this, and what would turn Mocopi into something even more special, is if Sony had some sort of dedicated support for this, because everything else is pretty awesome. So what do you think of Mocopi? It's definitely an interesting device for sure, and I'm glad it's here and I think it has its place, but I'm really hoping for some VR-centric updates in the future. And if you did like this video, just a couple days ago, I made a super in-depth mini documentary on the StarVR 1, one of the craziest VR headsets ever made with an even wilder backstory. So definitely go check that one out. Thank you, Sony, for letting me try this thing out. It was really fun to make a video on, and I've been waiting for it. And of course, thank you so much to my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas. I couldn't do any of this without you. And until next time, much love, we're loud.